Ford trying to come in alone. Shoot! Score! Yanni Ford, baby! He wins it for the Lightning! 5-4 in overtime!
Taylor the shot, redirected, score! Game 7, Montana St. Louis! We are going back to Tampa Bay! Cavalier spinning. Cavalier looking, trying to drop it off, brings it in himself, left it in the middle, shot, score!
The second edition of Thunderstruck with your host Philip Wunderlich and your co-host Jake Ricker. Jake, we have a lot to cover this week, talking about the possible Panarin trade, the Hedman winning the Norris. We might go off for another defenseman, and of course the draft is coming up.
Yep, definitely lots to get into, a lot of exciting things. I think it's going to be a fun offseason for the Lightning.
I think it'll be a fun offseason in general for hockey. And, there's a lot of talk about Tavares too, although Barry Trotz just signed and for the Islanders, so I think they have a good coach now, so we'll see what happens there. But I think it'll be a very eventful offseason in general.
Absolutely, and especially with the cap space moving up this morning, lots of interesting things that could go down throughout the entire NHL, but it'll be fun, but hopefully we can break some of it down for you guys in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, going up for the cap, we have $78 million now in cap space. It was projected to go up, and this year it went up to $78 million. And so
huge news for the Lightning, especially with all the big contracts that we got coming up.
Absolutely. We have Miller coming up. You have Domingue, Ernie, Paquette. And of course, you have Kucherov the following season. So we have to really find out what we're going to do with the cap that we have.
Yep, and every bit of cap space that we can get is going to help us out a lot. So we'll hopefully that little bit of extra cap space is going to help us out big time, and hopefully that means we can keep, hopefully an extra player, or even give us the room to maybe add an additional player to the team next year. Absolutely.
Speaking of additional team, the Chris Tanev from the Vancouver Canucks was reported that we might be in on him, and he's a right-handed defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks. What do you think about that?
It seems like this is some early trade rumors coming out, and teams are kind of just contacting him. I read earlier that these are kind of just lowball offers right now, and they're kind of just first steps of a trade. But if the Lightning are going to make a move for a guy like this, I think he could be a nice addition. He's more of a defenseman, which the Lightning don't have too much of, as most of our guys, as we know, are offensive defensemen. He wouldn't be a bad addition. However, as we kind of mentioned before with all of our cap space stuff, I don't know if he's a guy that Yzerman would really look for getting, especially with some of the guys that we have coming up in the minors, such as Callan Foote.
Although it also depends on how much you're willing to give up with it. I mean, according to TSN 1040 radio show, which was the person that originally messaged about Tanev, they said that it's going to be picks with Cuckoo or Dotchin. I mean, that's really a steal, don't you think?
Yeah, especially for a guy like his caliber, and especially because of how much the Lightning have used Cuckoo and Dotchin over the past couple of years. We haven't really had that much use for them just because of our depth on the defense. So if you can get them for that price, I think absolutely you have to make a move like that. But the question is that going to be something the Canucks take, or is the price going to get a little bit more expensive?
Yeah, I mean, although with our current cap situation, we do have a lot more. We have about 11,700,000 now with the cap raise. And looking at our lines, I think he would fit in well. You could move Sergachev to the left side, and you can replace. You can have Coburn and him in and out. So I think that would make our defensive pairs a lot better, and I think it would really fit our team.
Yeah, he's definitely not a bad option at all. Again, like I said, though, it's going to be a matter of what's the price going to be. But if it's there and we can grab him, why not? He would not be a bad pickup, would not be a bad addition. There's really no downside to this. Yzerman's not going to overpay for anybody. As we know how good of a GM he is. I'd be happy to see him on addition to the team. He's a leader too, which would be really nice for the Bolts. As we know, we've seen that work out on our team already with Chris Kunitz. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days, if he's moved at the draft or if he's moved closer to free agency.
Absolutely. So going towards the draft, since you mentioned the draft, we have the 50 sorry about that. 59th pick. Yeah, I was either confused. 58th, 59th. We had the 59th pick. And who do you think that we might go after?
I think personally, as we mentioned on the last episode, is that the Lightning really need another depth grinder guy, someone to really be able to throw the body. We know we have a guy like that in Callahan and Paquette, but we could really use another guy like that. So looking at the prospects ranked by NHL.com, I think a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, he's not related to O'Reilly though, but he's a 6'2", 201 pounds, right winger. He could be a nice option. Lightning don't have too many players at right wing. It's one of their weaker sides. So he could be a nice viable option for them. Another guy I looked at is Curtis Douglas. This guy is 6'8" and 248 pounds. This is like a Chara. If you ask me, and he's a center too. Again, he could be another guy that you could put on the fourth line and throw the body around, and that's something the Lightning lack. We are an offensive team, and it would be not a bad idea at all to add somebody like that. What about you, though?
I think that I was looking at a couple of people myself. I thought either Alan McShane, who is kind of like a Tyler Johnson type player. He's been in the Memorial Cup twice over the last 2 years. So he really has that will, and in those playoffs he had an assist in the first year they went in, and a goal and an assist, and 2 assists. Sorry about that. And then the second year, he played for the Erie Otters the first year with, of course, Cirelli, and the second year they played on the Oshawa Generals. I think that this player is kind of like I said, a Tyler Johnson type player. In his first year. With the Erie Otters, he had 7 goals overall with 16 assists. So he's much more of a playmaker than he is a goal scorer. But I think he would really fit in our team. I don't know if he'll fall back that far, because he's projected at by some of them, he's projected at 54th. But I don't know if he'll fall that low. And the other person I was looking at is Nando Eggerberger, and he is he can either be on the left side or the right side. He's from Switzerland. He has some decent numbers over the last couple of years, and he's projected at the 63rd pick. So if we go off and do what you said about getting a bigger type player, he's 6'2", 185 pounds, so he's a decent size. And, of course, he can bulk up and stuff like that. He's only 18 years old. So I think someone like that might fit your role as well.
Right, definitely. And, the first guy you mentioned, what was his name?
Alan McShane.
Yes, he definitely fits the bill for, a Lightning forward to say. As you mentioned, he played with Cirelli, so, you get some chemistry there. And we've seen how well Tyler Johnson's worked out for the Lightning. We love Johnson. He shows up when he needs to, and we need playmakers on this team. It's what helps Kucherov and Stamkos out so much. So he definitely fits the bill. But you got to think I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lightning take another Russian in the second round. Because do you remember who we took at the 58th pick overall in the second round?
Yep, Nikita Kucherov.
Yep. So we know the Lightning are so good at drafting. In years past, Kucherov was one of the prime examples. Braden Point was a third-round pick. And I'm not. If the Lightning want to move up as well, they do have that option because there's guys like Johnson, like Coburn, that they could potentially move up in the draft if they wanted. However, I don't see that happening personally, just because if you look at the history of the Lightning, Yzerman loves to trade down and get a couple extra picks and still get his guy. And his team is so good at finding those players. So who knows? Maybe we'd be able to take another Russian in the second round.
Exactly. You never know. And our scouting department is, like you said, is so good. You don't really know what's going to come out of the draft. There's always prospects that don't pan out and stuff like that. But our scouting department is always done really well. Like you said, with Nikita Kucherov getting picked at the 58th, Point getting picked in the third round. Are these gems that you could say on these rounds that people don't really, get too excited over.
Yep, you really don't know until they start playing in the NHL, and the next thing you know, this guy should have been a first overall pick, which is always fun to watch too. And the Lightning have done it so well over the past couple of years.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, though, I don't foresee the Lightning moving up. I think they'll draft at the 59th pick. But we'll have to see what happens.
Speaking of trades, we had a small one over a couple days ago with Budaj going over to the Kings again, and Andreoff coming over. He, like you said, he's that grind type guy. He can fit on the third, fourth line, get in a few fights. Me living in Anaheim, I've seen a few of them, probably more so than you guys have over there in Tampa. But I know exactly what type of player he is, and I'm really excited about bringing him over. And like you said, mentioned in your article, we're saving money as well, about $300,000 in cap. So like we said earlier in the podcast, that every little dollar helps our team.
Yeah, I personally love this trade for the Lightning. It's no blockbuster trade, but it's huge for the Bolts. Everybody has said, Budaj is a great guy. And is a guy I'd love to have on my team. But, for the Lightning, with Andrei Vasilevsky is our clear, obvious starter, he's only 23, I believe. He's got so many years ahead of him. And then Louis Domingue, who, he had a great year last year, I thought, as the backup goaltender. We really just don't have a need for Budaj. And to grab a guy like Androv, who, as you said, is that grinder-type player that we could use in any given situation, is nice to have. We're saving money, and, he can play down in Syracuse and can come up for the Lightning if needed. So this is just all around a great move for the Bolts. There's no downside to this trade for the Lightning at all.
Exactly. And not only that, we did have a signing too with Pasquale getting signed. So we have Domingue, we have of course we have Vazzy, we have Ingram. We have all these people in our system. Budaj didn't really make sense. Why wouldn't we have a third goalie? So I think this is a really great trade.
Yeah, Budaj would really be used for injuries most, and the Lightning will be easily able to call up somebody if that's going to happen. You really don't need three goaltenders, and as we've seen, knock on wood, but we haven't had too many injury problems with goaltenders.
Yeah, better knock on that wood pretty hard.
No kidding. Well, recently anyway,
Yeah.
Not talking about Bishop or anything like that. But,
Speaking of the Russians, Temi Panarin said that he might not be willing to sign right away to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, this was interesting.
We ran a poll on our site asking you fans about do you think they might bring him over, and quite a bit of you guys actually think that Panarin might fit in our team. Of course. Panarin, Stamkos, and Kucherov sounds like a heck of a line. But
would that be fun to watch?
Yeah, that would be really fun to watch, like you say. But do we have enough cap for it?
I personally voted no in this poll. And as much as I would love to see him come over to this team, I just don't think, it's possible. I think it's kind of like a, Tavares and Carlson type of deal where, of course, everybody's going to fantasize over this, but, is it something that Yzerman can pull off, which of course he can, but is it something that's going to help the team for the future down the road? With the Lightning, with all their players, as we've mentioned multiple times, coming up for contracts, we're going to need every bit of cap that we can get. This is definitely a move you could pull off if you're going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to go all in, put all our marbles in one basket and go for it next year. But as we know, history-wise, Yzerman is not the type of person to do that. He likes to build for the future and have that large window of opportunity. And you have guys, like we mentioned before, Coburn and Johnson are definitely two pieces you can move. I think Johnson would be a big part of that trade if that were to go down. I don't know if this just fits our team just right with the way timing and things are working out right now.
And like you said, I don't know if Yzerman would be willing to do that. He doesn't really like giving up his first round picks unless, he has to make sure trading the actual player that you pick. But that's another story. But I don't know if, like you said, he'd be part of our team. It's going to cost a lot of money. Panarin obviously makes a team better no matter what team you're going to put him on. I mean, if you put him on Edmonton Oilers were garbage last season. But if you're going to put him on the team, darn well that they're going to be that much better.
Absolutely, we saw that with the team. God, I'm having a brain fart. With the Blue Jackets this year. They had a great season, which is why it's a little bit surprising to me that he doesn't want an extension. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I personally, I've been hurt before with Yzerman. I've wanted players before, so I personally don't see it happening. But crazy things have happened, so it'll be interesting to see where he moves on.
I mean, like we said in the last podcast, we all wanted Erik Karlsson to come over, and which was going to be another interesting story. I think this offseason, with the Hoffman and Karlsson situation, Hoffman already got traded over to the Florida Panthers in a 3-way trade. You can obviously see that San Jose won in that one. They got several picks. They got cap space. If they wanted to bring over John Tavares, I think they could. It's kind of interesting though how Hoffman came over, because they wanted to get him as far away as possible, so they sent him over to San Jose. But then here they comes back, right in our division again, right in our backyard in Florida.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how all of this pans out. As we mentioned before, it'll be a very exciting offseason for the NHL. I still think there's always a slight chance we could get one of these big name players, but. It's unlikely, but it'll be interesting for sure to see where they go.
Yeah. Okay, the last thing we need to touch up on. Well, two things left. Hedman, the beast, the Norris god, he wins his Norris. He played a hell of a season. 17 goals, 46 assists, with 63 points. He had a hell of a year. And it finally pays off, and he gets his Norris Trophy.
Absolutely. I'm so happy for him. You look at the voting, it wasn't even that close. He had 94 first-place votes, 57 second-place votes, and only one fifth-place vote. Not sure who that person was, but...
I don't either. I don't think I wanted to find out who that was.
No. But yeah, Victor Hedman absolutely deserves it. He was fantastic for the Lightning this season. Just a shutdown defender. And, the best part of his game is he can play for so long. His ice minutes are always up there at the top, I believe. Let me take a look real quick. He had over 21 minutes of ice time. Yeah, 25 minutes, excuse me. This is a guy that you can put out there in any situation, on the penalty kill, on the power play, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, 3-on-3, you name it.
He's a workhorse.
Grinding it out.
Like I say, he's a workhorse. So you can put him, like you said, you can put him on anywhere. It doesn't matter, like you say, it doesn't matter what type of situation. He'll get anything done for you.
Yeah, and we saw that. And if you look at the goals, assists, and points for defensemen, Victor Hedman is one of the only guys that is up there in like the top 10, top 5 category for each one. A lot of guys you'll see will be more offensive and have more goals, but will really fall off during the assist section. But for Victor Hedman, he's up there in all 3 categories. He's an all-around player. I'm so happy for him to finally get that trophy. He definitely deserved it. And it's so awesome for him. It was unfortunate Andre Vasilevsky wasn't able to get his trophy, but, still in both nation hearts, I think we can definitely say he had a fantastic season as well.
Yeah, I believe so too. It's unfortunate that we didn't go to Stanley Cup because I think both those guys deserved it. But at the same time, I think Vazzy had a heck of a year, and so did Hedman. And, Braden Point is another guy that almost made the Selke. I mean, he got number 8 in votes, second year in the league. I think that's really telling you on what type of player he is.
He was a fantastic player for us this year. Really had a huge breakout season. We saw how good he was on the shootouts and breakaways. I mean, if that man got off all alone, it was game over. He was scoring no matter what. He was such a fun player to watch. He definitely deserved to be up there with the top guys. And it'll be really fun to see him next year too. Now, I really do think he'll be able to keep this up. Hopefully he grows even more. Kind of pulls what Nikita Kucherov did and continuously growing every single year. But yes, absolutely, Braden Point, another fantastic player for the Bolts. We had a lot of guys up there for the voting in the awards in the top 5, top 10 category. Even John Cooper and Steve Yzerman were both up there for their respective awards as well.
Yeah. I mean, Yzerman, unfortunately, got 3rd as far as GM of the year. Obviously, George McPhee would get it, considering the type of the year that Vegas Golden Knights had.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, like you said, the way that our team is built around, we have several years of, several years of greatness, I guess you could say, down the pipeline.
100%. I think this just shows how great of an organization that we have. We had Hedman and Kucherov were named to the first NHL All-Star team at the awards. As we said, multitude of players in the top 10 of voting for these awards. We just have such an amazing organization that Vinnick has built in the Tampa Bay area, and that we're going to have such a bright future down the line. It's really exciting for both fans.
I agree. Okay, so the few questions that we had, one of them I can't seem to find somehow, but they said that who is the 3 people that we believe that it will be kind of like the future of the organization. And obviously I'd have to go with Vazzy. I'd have to go with Braden Point. And of course, Nikita Kucherov is still young, so I'd probably either say Nikita Kucherov or Mikhail Sergachev.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Vazzy. He's only 23, as we mentioned before. Very, very long future here in Tampa Bay. I think you do go with Kucherov. Just because we know he wants to stay in Tampa. We want him in here in Tampa, so he'll be a Bolt for a little while. He's at the peak of his career right now, so he's definitely part of the future. And then, I think even Yanni Gourde and Braden Point, I think both those guys you could put into that category. Both those guys having fantastic years and are still very relatively young. I think those are the main ones you look at right there. And I think it's tough to pick only 3. We have so many bright young stars.
Yeah, like you said before about Cal Foote, Cal Foote, I've talked about many times as our high prospect, and we haven't seen him yet on the NHL stage. We could, depending on how he comes out of training camp. But he's going to be really interesting. He could play with Sergachev. He could play with Hedman. He can play various roles. He's an offensive guy, but he's a big guy. Like you said, maybe like a kind of like a Chara, how he was in the beginning of his career. He's in this prime, and he can get the shutdown down, and he can get the offensive ability as well. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how he comes out. Also,
yeah, he'll definitely be the player to keep an eye on. I think during training camp and during the preseason, and even down when he's down in the AHL for the first start of the season. He'll definitely be the player to watch because I absolutely think he could have a shot at the NHL team this year, especially depending on what goes down with the Lightning at the draft and free agency. Because, like as we mentioned, we really don't know what Coburn or Cuckoo or Dodgen, what their future is with the Lightning. So, if one of them gets moved, that just gives him that much better of a chance to be up on the NHL squad this year.
Absolutely. Who knows? He might make, like you said, the opening squad of, the schedule just got released. And the first game is October 6th at home against the Florida Panthers.
Yep, good old Florida rivalry. That'll be super fun to watch. It's always great playing the Panthers because we always dominate them as well. But looking at their schedule, I'm really happy with this year's schedule. There's not any long road trips. There's not any long homestands. It's a nice balanced schedule, I think. Obviously, with our longest homestand starting off, I believe, is the first one of the season with the 5-game homestand, and the longest road trip is going to be, we're going to be able to get that out of the way immediately with that 5-game road trip.
Yeah, and that's what hopefully I'm going to go to as well. Coming in October when they played against the Vegas Golden Knights. I've been to the T-Mobile Arena one time, but that was for the awards, not this year, but the last year. And it'd be interesting to see a game there against the Knights, especially how well they played. It's two powerhouse teams going against each other. And, of course, I'm going to catch my Ducks as well over in here in Anaheim.
Absolutely. A couple quick interesting facts about the schedule. This year, the Bolts will only have one home game each on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, respectively. So not much of games going down for the Lightning then. Most of their games are actually going to be played on Thursdays and Saturdays with 44 contests between the 2 days. So it looks like Thursdays and Saturdays are going to be huge for game days, which, I think is pretty cool. Obviously, Saturday is a very fun day for Lightning fans. It's a great day for everybody, because, it's the weekend. A lot more people have the time and the ability to watch the games. And, of course, as we know, that was the day the Lightning wore their alternate jerseys. So hopefully we get some new ones soon. That will be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to this year. I can't wait. I can't wait for the draft next year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of third jerseys, there's a lot of teams, including the Arizona Coyotes and the Carolina Hurricanes, that are announcing theirs at the draft on what they look like. But I think the Bolts will have one this year as well, although we haven't seen any real leaks about that. What do you think it might look like?
I'm not sure. I personally would love to see them go with kind of a throwback to the original OG jerseys back in 2004. I think that's something we really find, kind of a black and blue mix. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see them stick with their current back and black jersey that they had 2 years ago and just kind of rebranded, kind of like they did with this year's jerseys, obviously with the new brand. So it'll be interesting. I hope we get some leaks soon. I hope we start getting some teasers. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some palm trees on our jerseys this year for real.
I'd be right at Cool Hockey buying that right away. Like you said, the 2004 jersey, it was one of my favorite jerseys. I love the way they looked. Of course, we won the Stanley Cup in them. So I think that might be really interesting to bring back. The palm trees might be a great idea, not just a spoof this time. But who knows? Adidas comes up with really nice designs. I've really liked them since they took over Reebok. And, it's going to be really interesting.
Absolutely. I think we definitely stick with a more black, a bigger, a black jersey, mixed in with some other colors maybe. But I think definitely black is what the Lightning will stick with as the primary color for the alternate jerseys, especially.
Well, the only thing that I have seen is that by Aesthetics, and they said that it should be black. I don't know as far as exactly what they're going to look like, obviously, but they said that it should be more black. And based on a recent history with third jerseys, I wouldn't be surprised about it.
Yep, definitely. I would agree with that. That's what I think we should look for. So hopefully we'll see something soon. Maybe at the draft we'll get a little teaser. Maybe during the free agency we'll hopefully see something. But I definitely think we'll see something very soon. Unless they hold out for another year, which I would doubt. Hopefully not. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think they'd hold out this year. I think a lot of them are going to come back. It's going to be interesting to see these teams like Arizona try to bring back their Kachina jersey. I really like looking at jerseys. Like it's so different. I mean, I don't really like the Blackhawks, but I mean, like looking at their jersey, it's beautiful. So it's like it's every time that a jersey comes out, I get really excited about it. It's kind of like seeing new masks. I get really excited about new masks as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's the jersey is something, sacred to a fan. It's their jersey. It makes them feel a part of the team, and they're always fun. When teams come out with new cool designs, you get really excited about them. For every team, even if you don't like the team, they're just fun to see, and they're fun to make fun of too if they don't look that good.
Yeah.
So it's always exciting. I can't wait for all these jerseys to come out. We'll probably see a lot of them at the draft. So looking forward to it.
All right, another question by your dad is, do you think that the Lightning need to bring in an enforcer to toughen up their game? I believe that we brought in our enforcer as far as Andreoff. I don't think that the enforcer type role is there anymore. I mean, you don't see a George Peros type player or Kevin Westgarth player in our league anymore. I think that, we have Andreoff, we have Paquette, those type of players are now our enforcer type.
Absolutely. You don't have much of enforcers, so to speak, anymore. I think enforcers have kind of turned into a Ryan Callahan type where they're, nitty and gritty and making hits, all the time, playing on the puck. I think we still need to add some more of that because, again, as I mentioned before, we're more of an offensive team, so I would like to see more of a defensive player. I think we definitely go after someone like that in the draft. Again, as I mentioned before, I think it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Maybe not exactly enforcer is the right word to use, but, still a grinder, fourth line player.
Right, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. There's a lot of free agents that fit that type of role. But like you said, we'll see what happens this offseason. It's going to be an interesting one. The next question is by your mom, Michelle. Do you think the organization will make any changes to the number of defensemen or forwards that they are carrying? I honestly don't feel like they're going to make that much changes. I mean, there's not going to be an overabundance because there's only so many people that you can scratch. We have 12. We obviously have 12 forwards in a lineup and 6 defensemen. Usually it's 1 or 2 people sitting out. So I don't think we're going to change too much as far as defensemen or forwards that we're carrying. But again, we'll see what happens in the offseason. What do you think, Jay?
As we know, John Cooper likes to go with the 7 defensemen. And so, going off that, we'll probably carry more defensemen than forwards. But that's what we've done in the past. So there shouldn't be too much of a change unless we have a lot of shift in prospects like Cuckoo moving or Dotchin moving. If we start losing more of those guys, maybe we could see more forwards being carried on the team. But personally, I don't think there'll be that much of a change. We tend to carry more defensemen. And it also depends a lot on injuries as well. That's something that can fluctuate a lot over the season. If you start getting a whole bunch of guys hurt on offense, you're going to have to call more guys up on offense and hold more people, more offensive players on the organization on the main roster.
I agree with that too. I mean, like I said, if we went after Tanev, they said that would it be either Cuckoo or Dotchin, and Cuckoo and Dotchin aren't really in our lineup that much. So I think that as far as that goes, maybe we do have a Tanev player that is either a permanent stay in our lineup or he comes in and out with Coburn.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. Again, it'll be interesting, as we said before, what's going to happen. There might be some small shakeups, but I think most things stay the same for the Bolts.
I agree. The last question is by Stacy, and she said, what is your stance on Tyler Johnson's contract? Tyler Johnson's, do you think that he's worth keeping? I honestly think that Tyler Johnson is on a solid contract. I saw him really light up in the playoffs. I know there was some there was some lackluster performances, but at the same time, I think that Tyler Johnson is a type of player that we need. He has a 7-year, $35 million contract, but I think that's the type of player that we need. You need to help Kucherov. You need to help these top scoring players with solid passes and stuff like that, so that way they can get on the scoreboard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I personally love Tyler Johnson. He's one of my favorites on the team. I know a lot of people have put him in trade ideas for them, but like you said, I think he's got a decent contract. He's got a no movement clause kicking in this year, I believe. So unless he's moved at the draft or during free agency, I don't think he goes anywhere. I think we had a whole problem across the board of people not showing up in the playoffs, as we noticed, especially in that Capitals series. So, and Johnson's the type of player, as you mentioned, who can really make some great playmaking skills and set people up. He's kind of like an Andre Palat, I think, personally.
Yeah.
He's not always there. He's not always on the forefront of being one of the top players in the NHL. But when you need those guys to come in and come through for you, they usually do. And Tyler Johnson, another great player, another great guy. I think we keep him. I don't think he goes anywhere unless a drastic move is made at the draft.
I agree with you. The only thing that I can see Tyler Johnson be moving for is, like you said, a bigger piece. But I don't know if Yzerman would be actually willing to do that. So as far as, do you think he's worth keeping? I absolutely think, he's worth keeping. He's an American guy. You don't see that too much in hockey. It's more dominated by Canadians, so it's kind of cool having him on our team. So I don't think that we'd move him.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's going anywhere too much. But here, let's do something quick, real fun, Phil, for the fans, for all of our followers. Let's turn the question back on you guys this time. So I got a fun question for you. You can answer this too, Phil. We talked a lot about the Lightning, really keeping the door open for a multitude of years, and why, kind of why they wouldn't go after a guy like Panarin. So you guys, as Lightning fans, would you rather see the Lightning go for it and go all in and win that cup, or, keep this window open as we've been doing and maybe still struggle when we get into later rounds of the playoffs?
Well, I think that, it's going to be interesting as far as my opinion goes. But, having that long stretch that we have of people coming up, like we said earlier, Cal Foote and Cirelli played well throughout the season that he was in the lineup. But at the same time, it's almost like there's a cutoff period when you need to start thinking about the cup. I know we come close. The Eastern Conference Final is a bully to us every single time that we come in there. But it's almost like you need to. I don't think it's yet, but I think there's a point in time where we're like, okay, we need to do something to our lineup to boost it, to make it better than anybody else. To have a superstar lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as we've seen before, Yzerman likes to go with that kind of pattern. But I'm interested to hear from you guys to see what you think and what you would personally like to see.
Yeah. Again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BayBolts. And have a great night, everybody.